You guys like my ghost hand setup here? So, stage 1. What can I say about stage 1? It's kind of like Dodonpachi a little bit, where stage 1 really doesn't matter all that much as far as scoring. In fact, it doesn't matter at all as far as scoring. I could completely not chain the entire stage. I could just not fire at the entire stage. It really would not affect my overall score whatsoever. The thing about stage 1 that you need to keep in mind is just not to get hit, right? You're trying to conserve those resources, your lives and stuff like that. But basically beyond that, what you do is not that important. Like, I remember when I was first playing this game, I didn't realize that the majority of your score comes from stages 4 and 5. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna optimize stage 1 so much. I was like milking all these different sections and the mid-boss and the boss itself. There's some parts of the boss you can milk. And I thought, yeah, this is so hype. But then it turned out that none of it mattered, and that I was putting way more time and effort into it than I should have. So I guess, you know, on some alternate reality where this game's super optimized and tons of people play it, I suppose on some small level the scoring in the stage would matter, but as you will hopefully see throughout this run, like 90% of your score comes from stages 4 and 5. So what you do in stage 1, besides not getting hit, really doesn't matter. So the boss fight of stage 1 is actually fairly challenging in this mode. The mode I'm playing, by the way, is Spirit True, which I think is the best mode of the game. I know a lot of people like the Graze mode better because it's more, you know, it's supposed to be the legit mode or whatever, but I feel like this game is actually a lot more fun played in Spirit mode rather than in Graze mode. And this mode is genuinely very challenging because of the boss fights and some of the stages, and also because the scoring system is so brutal. It's like Dodonpachi, where if you make a mistake, it just murders your score in the later stages because the way the chain builds on itself. What's really cool about this game is that you can carry your chains into the boss fights, as you see here, which I think is really fun. Definitely adds a lot of challenge, but also makes it so if you really know what you're doing, you can push the scores to absurd levels. Especially in the final boss. If you go through stage 5 and then no miss most of the final boss fight, you will break the world record score. I did that in practice mode, and I was asking, does that count? Like, if I break the world record score in practice mode, does that count? I don't think it does, but that would be pretty cool. So stage 1, clean stage 1, so that's good. Something happened to the chat there, but I'm not going to worry about it. The good news is that I scheduled my run early, so if there's some kind of weird hiccups, like, we got time. We got time to get shit squared off. It's important not to speed kill right there. If you speed kill, you'll drop the chain. That happens a lot in this game, where a lot of the chaining comes down to just not speed killing certain sections. Because the chaining in this game is very lenient, which I know, you know, some people will consider it like not that cool because of that. But I actually really enjoy how lenient the chaining is, because I think it complements the overall game design really well. So one trick to chaining is that instead of rushing forward to grab bullets right away, like would be your instinct, it's better just to kill them and let them kind of drift into you. That way you're delaying the time you pick them up. Another good habit to make is always delay your gem collects. So whenever you kill stuff with hyper, it creates these gems. And sorry, I was checking the chat. And if you focus shot, the gems will fly to you. So rather than instantly collecting them, you can kind of delay your. You can make your chains last longer by delaying the collects. This is a fun pattern. This pattern is completely static, so once you learn it, you're all good. But it can kind of get a little bit mesmerizing at times. I call this pattern Devil Snare, because basically if you move during the pattern, it's going to destroy you. And so you have to learn to like hold still at the perfect times. So I might get hit on this pattern. This is one of the harder patterns. Just because there's so much visual information coming at you. So far so good. The second half too though, which can be challenging. Come on now, die. There we go. Good. So this pattern is just a quick test to see, hey, can you quickly move while unfocused? Because that's how you dodge this one. Nicely done. Okay, this pattern is one of the more random patterns in the game, where you'll get walled out. It's pretty critical that you have a hyper coming into this pattern, just in case you get walled like I did right there. I think we're safe. I think we did it there. Beautiful. I don't know why the chat disconnected, but it says we're still live. So I'm just gonna trust that we're still live and figure out what the hell happened to the chat in a moment. So now we're going into stage 3. So stage 3 has one of the weirdest chaining sections in the entire game. And for this run, I've decided I'm just gonna speed kill the enemies even if I drop the chain, because it's really worth not that many points, and it's really awkward and can get me into some really shitty situations. So if the chain drops right here, it's okay, it's not a big deal. What's more important is not getting hit at this stage. Well, it's always more important not to get hit, but the risk reward isn't there to like really put myself in a shit situation. So this game is naughty because it really wants to tempt you into using your hyper right here, but if you do, you're gonna have a rough time on the mid-boss. So it's better to hold your hyper through these sections and then use it on the mid-boss. Same thing in stage 4, as you will see. Really, a lot of hey, my chain didn't drop. A lot of Dan 3 routing comes down to knowing when to hyper, when to not hyper. Like, that's a huge thing. Like right there, if I hypered a little bit earlier, I would get punished. Because it's like DOJ, where when you hyper, mid-bosses and bosses get more aggressive. This is a really cool stage transition, by the way. So you want to always time your hypers just right. Same thing with lots of enemy patterns where they become way more manageable if you have a hyper. Like that dude right there. See how I delayed the gem collect? You want to do that. It just makes your chaining a lot more consistent. I love these enemies. Okay, chain drop. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. Stage 3, chain drop's not a big deal. It's all going to come down to stage 4 and 5, baby. That's where we care if the chains drop. I love these enemies here. Those laser enemies, because you can just milk them for lots and lots of meter. They really help you out in stage 4 and 5. Or stage 5 at least. Okay, the stage 3 boss. This is where things get pretty nasty. This is one of the hardest bosses because his patterns are really erratic. They're definitely the most erratic of all the bosses, even the last boss. And there's 2 patterns in particular that just gave me such a hard time. This one actually did too. I have my hyper I'm sitting on. I'm going to use it now. Very tricky to throw that. So it's a little bit risky to use that hyper when I did, but it'll set up for the next... Oh, that was close. It'll set up for the next pattern better that I did that. And the next pattern's the key one, so the risk was definitely worth it. Okay, this pattern is nasty. I call it Das Boot because of these purple boot things. They'll ruin your Christmas. Right there, those right there. I had to manual bomb there because I got booted. It's okay though, my chain already dropped, so not a big deal. If you manual bomb, it actually preserves your chain a little bit. It cuts your chain in half. But, you know, you don't want that most of the time. But in this scenario, it wasn't a big deal. Okay, TAS only. I want to hit this dodge. Oh, there we go. I wanted to hit that life so bad. There's 2 of them. There we go. Okay, I call that pattern TAS only because that's the tightest dodge in the entire game. The thing about that dodge is this isn't like Fitari where you've got this nice little tiny cute little hitbox. This game has a pretty chunky hitbox for a bullet hell. It's like Dodonpachi size. And that should do it. Nice. So, a very solid stage 3. Dropped my chain, but survival-wise we're looking great, and it's really going to come down to stage 4 and 5 where I get my score. This opening section is always a little bit odd when you first learn the game. The key to really maximizing this section is carrying your hyper to just the right moment, which will be when these guys spawn right there. Okay, so hyper please, there we go. Now the important thing to keep in mind is hitting this mid-boss and not dying is very valuable. Very, very valuable. So the way to maximize that stuff is to carry the hyper into it, just like I did in the stage 3. We're going to want to do the same thing here. So the game here is tempting you. It's saying, come on, you know you want a hyper. You know you want to. Look at all this juicy stuff. But don't do it, man. Because you need a hyper. As soon as this guy fires his first shot, you need a hyper. So this is actually one of the trickier sections to dodge. There's the reverse cancel, though. That's very important to time, because that's what's going to save your life. Okay, we got it. So what's cool about this game, and it kind of ruins DOJ a little bit when you go back to DOJ, is that this game has what's called reverse cancels, where not only does the beginning of your hyper cancel, but the end of it cancels. So it makes some really fun routing opportunities where you can route not only the front of your cancel, but the back as well. So this section is tough. Not only for survival, but because it's actually surprisingly easy to drop your chain right here. Even though there's a bunch of crap on the screen. Just because you're getting pushed away from where you want to go most of the time. Beautiful. So those dragon enemies are going to be the real money makers for this stage as far as scoring. Delay the hyper there a little bit, or delay the gather. Okay. Now the trick for this coming section, I call this section the Dragon's Den, This is the make or break scoring section of this level. And the trick here is you want to delay the hyper just a little bit. And then you want to just attack one side over and over rather than trying to hit both. It's like a master of none type situation where if you try and hit both, this is the clutch moment right here. Got it. Okay, so all I have to do now is maintain my chain, which shouldn't be too bad. As long as I don't stupidly fly into a bullet or something. Beautiful. These hypers are coming at all the right times. It's making me very happy. Hypers are being kind to me today. Because I think the biggest RNG element of this game, to be honest, is your grazing. It's not RNG necessarily, but you know what I mean? It's totally not that easy to control precisely when you gain hypers. You can get really close to where you want them, but there's always a little bit of a luck element to when they actually are going to activate for you. And there's some sections where you need them, like you have to have them at certain points, like in this section. And if you don't get them, that's going to be a rough day. So this is a tough pattern to dodge, especially when you're first learning, because you basically cannot move left or right. It's all up or down. That was a little earlier than it should have been, so I could have just totally threw off my routing there. Okay, it turned out okay. This is a tough pattern. If you do it just right, it doesn't look that bad. But if you get slightly off track, you're dead. So, perfect. Okay, we're doing really good. We're carrying the chain into the boss really nicely. This is where I was talking about, if you can chain into the boss fights, this is where you really start to make your money. Focusing in, focusing in. So I've decided I'm going to get a hyper very soon here. And last night I was trying to be all cool and trying to carry the hyper. But no, don't do that. Just hit instant activate as soon as you get that hyper. Okay, this is another tough little mid pattern here. Where if you get off route, again, it'll just kill you. Okay, perfect. Okay, this is the chain link. It's very possible I'll get hit here, because these dodges are absurd. This is a very memorization heavy section. I guarantee the first time you play this game, you will not only die at this section, but you'll probably lose like 3 lives on this section, because those purple lasers are absolutely brutal. Because they will, they just have no, remorse. They'll hit you, you know, activate your autobomb, and then just keep hitting you. So we're on excellent pace right now. I've actually already broken my scoring goal. The hype thing is that it is possible right now for me to break my own record and break the world record. The run's that good. But it all comes down to stage 5. Stage 5 is the end-all be-all of this game. Like I say, if you do a good stage 5, you can already beat the score. So it all comes down to a really solid stage 5. Survival-wise, we're looking really good. We're sitting on tons of resources. It would have to be a monumental choke at this point for me to drop the survival. And I already achieved the scoring goal, my initial, but I'm going to try and push and see if I can beat my record here. Which I almost did last night. So this section here is more tricky than it looks. And the reason why is these guys on the left come and flank you, and sometimes they're just rude, and they say, you know what, I know you're hypering right now, Mark, but I'm just gonna launch my missile through your hyper anyway, even though that shouldn't happen. Which happened to me last night in a run. So it's always a little bit scary if you're even slightly off those hits. They'll just throw their missile right through your hyper and hit you. This is my favorite hyper in the entire game. This section used to get me every time. Then I figured out you just hyper through it. See, playing aggressive in this section is the way to go. It used to be very challenging for me until I realized to just basically speed kill everyone with a hyper. So we're gonna want a hyper as soon as possible and activate it as soon as possible. So last night my chain dropped right here for no reason. So I have a little bit of PTSD why that happened, but it didn't happen here, so that's good. The trick to this section is you need to get the hyper off as early as possible because you need to rebuild it for the mid-boss. If you don't have a hyper on the mid-boss, it's game over. You need that hyper. But as juicy as this section looks, it actually doesn't give you as much meter gain as you would expect. So you have to really maximize it by getting a really early hyper. Okay, perfect. We're sitting on a good amount of meter gain. So I should be able to, yeah, there it is. Make it through this, and then I'm gonna hyper right at the end. Right there. Hopefully that wasn't too early. So far, so good. Oh, that was just nasty. Okay, there's gonna be a planned bomb now. And I'll tell you when. Now! Now, hopefully that kills him. Yes, okay, so I sacrificed some meter there, or some of my chain, but it adds a ton of consistency and gets me a nice little nest egg coming into the final section here. So that's kind of a... If I ever want to really push my scores in this game even higher, I'm going to need to abandon that planned bomb. But the amount of consistency it provides at this stage, I think it's definitely worth it. This section is actually really tricky here. Very nice, very nice. Going very well. Hyper now. Okay, we're coming into the satellites. This is gonna be the make or break for the top score. Oh my god, I almost just grazed into my death. So if I get hit at all, this top score is gone now. There's no recovering, no matter how well I play. This section is very, very tough. Toughest section of the game, by far. But the amount of points is absurd. I call this the satellites. Fuck. Okay, well, record gone, but that's alright. That's okay. My initial scoring goals and stuff are already accomplished, so let's just play this out. Still try to go for a swaggy end here. Hopefully, let's break 4 bill then. Double my initial scoring goal. The funny thing about this game is you'll wonder, why is my initial scoring goal so low then? I'll plan bomb there. It's because the way the scoring in this game is exponential. So if you miss just a few sections, you basically get absolutely nothing. So I just haven't missed anything, so my score is nice and juicy, but if you miss anything, your score just melts away. So it is possible, for instance, for me to play a very similar run to this, but just miss a thing here or there and have like 1 billion at the end. So let's break 4 bill. Definitely doable. I think survival-wise, we're looking real good. So I'm happy about that. This section here is the make or break section as far as scoring on this boss. Because usually if you get through this, because there's some randomness to this section, you know, you're looking good. Right now, since I got hit during the satellites, my rank is kind of low, to be honest, which is pretty surprising considering how well I've been playing. But that's a good thing. Low rank is a good thing. It's just interesting how the rank works. I never fully understand it because I never could get a full explanation of how it works, so I just know it when I see it, kind of thing. I know that hypering raises your rank and not getting hit raises your rank, but beyond that, I have no idea how it works. I call this the pinwheels. This is a very precise section where if you don't know what you're doing, you're just going to get mollywopped. And again, for people first playing this game, this section is going to be hell for you for a while. Copy my route, because it's basically really solid. It's all just about, as chaotic as the pattern looks though, it is static. Okay, this is the cat's eye. I'm going to get hit during this pattern because it's absurdly hard to dodge. If I can get a nice hyper, though. We want to just kind of minimize how many times I get hit. Nice hyper. Beautiful. When you hyper, these bullets speed up, too. Oh, nice reverse cancel. I might get out of this alive. I did. Wow. So, hold on a sec. Hold on. Might be doable. That's a very tough dodge right there. When you hit it, it looks casual as hell, but it's very tough dodge. One of the toughest in the game. Come on, Hyper. Where are you, old friend? Nailed it again. Holy shit! Okay, here we go. Yes! Oh, come on, come on. We want to carry this as far as possible. This is a very tough pattern to dodge. If it looks... I think I did it. Watch this trick. Totally worth it. Wow, I broke it. Broke the top score live with that absurd cat eye. I hope to God that the stream isn't dead. Holy shit, so that's the world record. That could not have gone better, other than not getting hit during the satellite. Holy shit balls. What a run. The chat died midstream, so I'm just praying that that actually was captured. OBS is saying it's going. So, let me put my initials in and we'll check the chat. Holy shit. I tried my best not to swear too much during that run because I'm going to show it to GDQ for my admission. Hopefully, maybe I'll cut out the end there where I start swearing. Wow. So that's 6. I broke 6 bill. Did it live on Shmup Slam 2. That was my scoring goal, like, overall, is to break 6 bill, so... Wow. Holy crap. Okay. Check in chat. Okay, chat is alive. Okay, good. Thank God. Awesome. Okay, well, I gave myself a little bit of wiggle room to set up for the next one, because the next one's gonna feature a double play. So coming up next is